Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Social Critic. My name's Sohail Shakeri, and I am really excited and honored and blessed to have our very special guest today with us, Ms. Danielle Paige. And so I feel like we're going to have a wonderful conversation for you all. And we'll jump right into it. So I'll just tell you a little bit about Danielle. I'm sure many of you know her already, and then we'll get into our conversation. So with that, Ms. Danielle Paige is an international spiritual teacher, soul astrologer, host of Cosmic Body podcast, which I've listened to a number of episodes of and highly recommend, and founder of Purposely Divine, School for Your Soul and Astrology Mystery School. A self-taught astrologer who's been reading the stars for lifetimes, she continued her studies with some of the world's top astrologers. She then devoted herself to learning different types of healing to create her own style of spiritual medicine. By fusing astrology, energetic healing, and intuition, she is able to help her clients heal their wounds, clear old patterns, and help them come back home to their heart. Danielle has given talks on mysticism and astrology at Scorpios Mykonos, Glossier headquarters in New York City, Soho House, the Assemblage, the Good Fest, and has traveled to over 32 countries, bringing women together while leading retreats in Hawaii, Costa Rica, as well as 3 retreats on the Greek islands of Mykonos and Kythnos. Her work has been featured in Vogue Netherlands twice, Goop, Astrology.com, London Standard, The Numinous, Thought Catalog, J-Date, CBS Radio, and more. Connect with Danielle and follow her energy updates on Instagram at I am Danielle Paige, or her website, daniellepage.com. Thank you so much, Danielle, for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
My pleasure. Great. Yeah. So when I was learning more about you and your work, as I was learning more, I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like Danielle is someone that like I could have gone to high school with. And just it's like at the time probably wouldn't have had a connection with, at least on like the surface, cliques, groups, and things in school. But I just feel like it's amazing how people's paths can evolve and their trajectories can lead to just these synchronicitous connections that just miraculously pop up later in life. And so I just feel this strong affinity with your work. And so I find it inspiring and beautiful. So thank you for sharing with the world.
Thank you so much. It's my calling. It's what I'm here to do.
Beautiful. Love it. So I know you do wonderful work in astrology, and I was wondering if you could speak a little about the science of astrology. And I say that because, I come from an academic background. And, so I studied philosophy and religion at, prestigious university. And things of this nature are not considered part of the realm of science or precise studies, and I find that ironic because there's so many just conjectures and blatant errors in the traditional sciences, if you will, whether that's in the hard sciences or in the social sciences, and but I really feel like your work is really important for expanding our collective awareness of science and knowledge. And I feel like the astrology that you are teaching to people and that you've worked on so extensively for yourself is an important component of that. So I'd love if you could speak for our audience a little about the knowledge and the discipline and the science of astrology.
Well, I first want to start off with what is science, right? What is science? What is being portrayed today, or is that paid propaganda, right? So we have to really start with what is science? Do we really know, because there's a lot in which we won't go down the rabbit holes of, but we call everything science, but what is that? It's really backed and funded by people who have a narrative, right? So I think the first thing is we have to look at everything that we think we know is not really the way it is. So with that being said, the best thing that I can say about astrology is, and I want to make this very simple, is that it's energy, and everything is energy. And if there are people that have a very black and white mindset of like, I can't see it, so it doesn't exist, then they're going to have a hard time with this. But what I want to say to people like that is, how do you explain your intuition, right? We all have an intuition. How do you explain connection between people who have passed over, right? There's so many things beyond the logical left mind, and a lot of times that is science, and science is beautiful for what it is, but I also believe that science is limited because there's so much more beyond that. So going back to astrology, is everything comes down to energy, and there are energetic patterns, and because we're energetic beings, hence why I called my podcast Cosmic Body, we feel the energy. We just had an eclipse, and it was very powerful. And eclipses alter the electromagnetic field of Earth. So all living, breathing organisms of Earth feel it. Birds even stop chirping. They have their certain patterns in nature and animals, and they'll do something different during that time of the eclipse. And so you don't have to believe in astrology, but you're going to feel it because you're still an electromagnetic energy being. So to me, it's a beautiful way to understand this collective that we're under, and to learn that there's something so much bigger than us. And again, the other thing I tell people is you don't have to believe it, but if I do pull up someone's birth chart and I look at transits, which are the cycles in the sky, and put it and I put them on someone's specific birth chart, I can see, oh, you're going through this period and it might feel rough. You might feel depressed, or a lot of people move, or there's going to be some sudden changes, right? It's not about me to predict exactly what they're going to do because they have free will. And I never pretend that I'm going to predict, but what I can see is certain patterns and behaviors and lessons going on. And so because we are very reactionary as human beings, we react, right? When the moon is full, you can even ask anyone in emergency rooms, there's more people going to the emergency rooms because the moon rules our emotions, and our emotions get heightened, right? So things come to a head. So then it comes back to everything is energy, and there are different patterns and archetypes of the planets, and we feel them. And so the point to me of astrology is not that we are ruled by something in the sky and we have no say. It's we are part of this collective, so let's learn to flow with it. So when these cycles come about, instead of using a shadow energy, let's try to use the higher octave. What is the higher expression of this? What is your soul trying to learn? How can we evolve to this instead of seeing patterns, shadow patterns getting repeated over and over again? So that's the long of the short of the answer.
Beautiful. I love that because for a number of reasons, but one that stood out particularly was how you were describing an eclipse, and how it's an event where the electromagnetic frequency of the Earth shifts. Yeah. It's just a fact. It just is. And so part of your work helps us, if I understand correctly, helps us to align with those energies so that we can essentially be more conscious and allow for those energies to fuel our life in the best way possible. Is that a fair statement?
100%. And we have a lot of free will, and we have a lot of I mean, that's why we're here on Earth, is to make decisions. Do we make a decision from a lower consciousness of fear, or do we make a decision from wisdom, higher consciousness, and our heart and love, right? And we might fall back and do one, and then we might go to another extreme, and then we might go back, and right, that's the journey of life. So understanding that there is a cyclical nature of Earth, of life, of the universe, and we are a part of it because we are not separate from it. I think we've gotten so far away from nature. You know, think about it. We're in these boxes with artificial lighting. We have Wi-Fi, and as beautiful as that is, and grateful that if it's a hot day, I can turn on the air conditioning, right? Or if it's cold, I can turn on the heat. So that's beautiful. Technology is a beautiful advancement. But also, we can see what happens to other civilizations. Sometimes we do go too far, right? So it's a fine line of using the technology to make our life easier while still connecting back to our true nature. And I often find, I think the biggest cause of depression and anxiety and a lot of the problems we have is we are so far removed from our true essence of nature, right? And the stars and the patterns and the cyclical cycles is nature. We are nature, but we forget that. It's so simple. You know, just for example, if somebody is depressed or having trouble sleeping, if you get them back on a consistent circadian rhythm, waking up with the sunrise, going to sleep, like their entire life is going to change. You're going to see the inflammation go down in their body. You're going to see everything because nature wants to heal. Our bodies want to heal. And again, you can think of it as health, or you can think of it as mental health. You can think of it as anything. We are meant to be in alignment with nature. That's really what it comes down to.
I love that. And I love how you are expanding our collective consciousness of what is nature. Because I know for myself and many people, when we say nature, we think of, the forests, the trees, the mountains, the oceans, which are amazing.
Yeah.
But there's that additional astral component of
Yes.
nature, which you just so eloquently described. So wow, that's a really beautiful and profound point about getting in alignment with nature.
Yeah, and actually, I want to, if you don't mind, could I add one more thing that I think is going to be really helpful for people? When we talk about intuition, intuition is really the same thing as being psychic, but people don't like that word. They're like, oh, I'm not psychic, right? They think of psychic as a crystal ball, right? And has a neon sign outside. But really being psychic and intuitive, it's the same thing. And when we come back to our heart and our soul, every single person is intuitive. Every single person is psychic, because all that means is it's just sensing subtle energies beyond the physical realm. And so again, we're distracted a lot by all these things, the noise, the TV, the media, the reality shows, people fighting, the drama, right? Shopping, alcohol, drugs, whatever it is, there's so many distractions. But when we can move and come back into our rhythm, that's coming back into nature. We're all intuitive. So again, it's nothing to be scared about. It's scarier to me when somebody says, oh, I'm not intuitive. You never had a feeling where you should not go there, and then you found out later that something happened, or that person, you were going to sign a contract, you're a business woman or business man, and you were going to sign a contract, but your intuition told you not to trust that person. Really, you've never had that? That to me is scary, because it shows me you're more disconnected than anything else. But that's an important point that people need to see, that it's everyday life. You don't need to be a psychic. You don't need to read tarot cards. You can use this in business. You can, if you're a doctor and you have an intuitive feeling about why someone keeps getting sick, we need to listen to that. That's nature.
Wow, that's a great point. And as you were just describing that, it reminded me of how, when we read in religious scriptures, about prophets, saints, sages, how we hear stories about them being able to know something about someone or about something that's occurring that is beyond the physical, for them to have access to this knowledge that's beyond the physical plane. And a lot of people look at that. So I think people go to two extremes, right? Like, so they'll either say that, oh, that's a bunch of hogwash, Or they'll say that, oh, they were amazing, miraculous beings, and we need to worship them. I mean, they won't use those words, but they'll basically say that we need to follow them completely because they are the ones with that access, and we have to bow down because they are on another plane. But I feel like with what you're saying, essentially, in a way, it's taking us back to a place where we can say that prophetic knowledge is real. Now, not to say that, you know, people haven't exaggerated stories here and there, but at its essence, it's real. And it's something that we all can tap into ourselves. I feel like that's really powerful.
Yes, 100% is I what everyone that follows me, follows online, they know don't come to me, don't cling to me, don't hang on me, don't ask me for questions. If you send me a DM and ask me to with this decision or that decision, I'm not going to answer for anyone because I'm not your guru, I'm not your guide, I'm not your messiah. None of us are. All we are is showing you the way back home to your heart where all your answers are. I don't know what would be great for someone else because it's not my decision to make. It's your decision to make because whether you pick option A or option B, that's going to shift the trajectory of your life, and that's your soul contract and that's your soul karma. And so it's not for me to tell someone about how to play out their karma and their dharma. That's their journey. So again, everything I teach people is to come back home to their own heart and their own power, and that we have everything inside of us already, but we live in a society that we're taught to get the bigger purse, get the bigger house, get the better car, get this. You're not complete if you're not married, if you don't have 2.2 kids with a picket fence, right? So everything is outside of us, and all those things are beautiful and we get to enjoy them, but can you enjoy them from a place of wholeness and fullness? That's the question.
Beautiful. I love the 2.2 kids.
Yeah,
Respect.
I know.
Yeah.
You don't have 2.2 kids.
I know, right? Yeah. Keeping up with the Joneses.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, that's such a great point. You touched on the importance of aligning our bodies, you know, as a part of the work that you do in aligning with nature in this, you know, the sense in the sense of the stars and the planets, and how realigning our body with the circadian rhythms so that our sleep can be more aligned with the patterns of nature, and like for example waking up with the sunrise. And you mentioned that a lot of times you'll see a person's symptoms, you know, whatever they may be, they might start to subside. And so one of the things that I'm passionate about is that, you know, people like yourself, I feel like are really, and you touched on it, you know, or I touched on it in the bio that I read of you, how you talk about spiritual medicine and how, you know, this is a form of medicine. And, you know, in our current, especially today, my goodness, our medical paradigm and our collective is becoming more and more, um, you know, tyrannical,
Yeah.
dictatorial,
Yep.
uh, and narrow, where I feel like we need to go in the opposite direction in order to expose ourselves to, you know, healing modalities that can really nourish not only our body but also our soul. And so I was wondering if you could touch on that a little bit more.
Yes, I love everything you said, and I am a huge proponent of medical freedom in every respect. And, I understand that there's a lot of people out there that might not even understand really to the depth of what that means. And possibly because they haven't gone through something themselves, and that's okay. Like, God bless you if you've never gone through a health scare. I hope most people have not. But if you have, and you've tried to go through the Western system of it, it's just this one way, take this pill and do this, right? You learn very quickly that that's not the case for everyone. I went through a very serious health journey of Lyme. And if you're very familiar with Lyme, Lyme comes with all sorts of co-infections, which is heavy metals, mold, candida, parasites, it's everything. Yeah, and so because they all thrive and they all live in the environment. And when I started going through that, I went to Western medicine because, you know, I didn't know what else to do. And they kept giving me antibiotics, and then I kept getting sick, and I kept getting the flu, severe flu over and over. It would go away, and then 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, it would come back. And this happened about 6 to 8 times in a row.
Oh my
And
goodness.
I was like, this is not, and then I started getting intuitive hits of, okay, there's something else here. And I started being led. Like I would introduce to someone that was more of a healer, and I was introduced to someone that was a functional doctor. And then I started, just people would come on my path, right? And so I started healing on this journey when I moved completely away from Western medicine because it wasn't helping me. It was actually making me more sick. And then when I started doing the alternative, which I hate the word alternative because it's actually the most truthful, symbiotic, you know, in alignment medicine there is. So when I started doing that is when I started healing, and it's been a journey, and I'm still on this journey because to clear out years and years of heavy metal toxicity from, you know, inoculations. I don't know if we could use the other word. You know, we'll just use that for right now. You know, and also just eating a standard American diet while growing up and not realizing that everything is sprayed with chemicals. This takes a toll on your body. So I am healing 30 to 40 years worth of toxins in my body. And the thing is, we're used to Western medicine, take a pill and you get better. But the reality is that's not the case, because you take that pill and all it does is mask the symptoms, and then you end up having symptoms later on. So in order to heal, it does take time. You can watch. I mean, I was for a year in bed. You know, my neurological was impaired. I could barely talk. I was slurring my words. My brain fog was so bad. I didn't even know how to look at a birth chart. I would forget what to do. I would forget my name at times. So people don't understand how severe that is unless they've gone through it. I saw my mental health completely decline. I would turn into a different person from I learned after it was the parasites, but I was angry because they attack your liver, right? Everything is stored in your liver. The liver rules anger, and so I was screaming at people I love. Sometimes I wouldn't leave the house because I didn't trust myself to like what am I going to get in a fight with people about, right? But it changes your mental health. So a lot of people that are depressed or angry or you know, acting all sorts of, you know, I don't say crazy, but I was acting crazy, so I could say that. That's because you're infiltrated with parasites and they take over your mental health, and people don't realize that. And the people, I was just talking with David Avocado Wolf, and the people that are in power, most people, the world, people don't understand this is run by parasites. And I don't mean like fake little monsters running around, but most people are infiltrated or taken over by parasites, and it makes you angry, it makes you dark, it makes you do bad things, right? And I've seen parasites, without getting graphic, come out of me. So this is a real thing. So yes, going back to the medical freedom, there's no way that every one person can be assigned one pill or one shot or one of this, because everyone is a different constitution. That's what you learn very quickly when you go through this. Everyone's constitution is different. There's a reason why we have different blood type, first of all. You know, there is also, you know, I have 4 out of the 5 MTHFR gene mutations, so my body doesn't detox. And knowing this now, I can look at my life and I can understand why I had more trouble. Like if I ate, you know, a hamburger or McDonald's when I was younger, it would make me sick for such a long time, and then my friends would be fine, you know. I could just see these examples of I didn't understand those things. So if you don't understand your constitution, right, there's no way that one size fits all can do that. And so going back to the astrology, it's all intertwined because we're cosmic bodies. So I teach people to listen to their intuition. If I did not listen to my intuition, and if I had that, you know, I just have to stick with Western medicine. And Western medicine has a time and a place, don't get me wrong, but it's not healthcare. Western medicine is emergency medicine, and I'm so grateful for that. If I get into a car accident, I'm grateful for that. If I have a heart attack, I am so grateful. If I break my leg, I want a surgeon. I'm very grateful for that. But what it has done is it's moved into healthcare, which is not healthcare, which is actually big pharma university. So if we really want to go there, right, it's not even the doctor's fault. It's been taken over by corporations, just the same as the media has. So we have to, without getting on a whole tangent of that, we have to understand that, and this is the period we're going into astrologically, is its power back to the people of understanding that, listen, if somebody wants to go do something, by all means, you have every right to go do something. If you feel safer getting a shot, right, then by all means go do it. And I respect that, because that's your choice. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you not to do it, because I respect your freedom. But we all have freedom as well. And we all have different bodies, and you have to get to know your system. And the last thing I'll say with that is, after going through 3 years of bringing my body back from being on the ground, crying, begging the universe to take me because I couldn't live like this anymore. I was so sick. And if you don't have health, you don't have anything. To where I am now, there's no way in hell I'm going to let anyone put anything in my body without my permission, because I know what it does.
You've experienced it firsthand.
I've experienced it. And if you would have asked me the same question 3 years ago, almost 3.5 years now, I would not have been able to answer this. I would have been like, listen to the doctors, they know what they're doing, because that's the story that I was told too. I didn't know anything. I was disconnected from my own power as well. So I don't blame anyone. And of course, there's going to be people listening to this that don't agree with that. And that's okay. Maybe that's not your path in this lifetime. And that's great. That's why we have Western medicine, because you can go to it. But to say and demand that someone else does something, the only reason why someone would demand someone else does something is through fear.
Wow. So profound, so important. Yeah, one of the things that is important to me is, recognizing where we're operating out of fear and contraction, and recognizing where we're operating out of love and expansion. And it's not something that I can say that I've conquered. It's something I struggle with myself, but it's something I feel that I'm gaining more and more awareness of, and I feel like it's driving, as you alluded to, the whole narrative of our society that I feel like has been continuing for a long time. But what we've seen with recent events, with the virus, that it's just been amped up to a crazy level. Yes. Where we have these imprints and these fear programs that have been running in the background that I feel like we haven't been aware of, and that we feel like, oh, we've got the white picket fence and the 2.2 kids and we're keeping up with the Joneses and doing our thing. But then all of a sudden someone turns on a light switch, and it's like, oh, well, we had these programs running in the background that we weren't aware of, and now all of a sudden, there's this scary monster that's like 0.01 microns or something like that is gonna, take our lives away. And so people, get into this contraction mode, and it's just like you said, it drives us, and it's made us so unhealthy. So I really appreciate that that insight. That's really profound and important.
Yeah, and I want to say this, in what I'm about to say, in no way am I not having sympathy for anyone that has died. Okay, so my heart goes out to any family that has dealt with anyone that has died. It's a horrible thing to go through on earth. Okay, that being said, this had to have happened, and I'm not specifically saying the virus, I'm saying the corruption and everything. It's all coming up now for a reason, because it's been here the whole entire time. It's just being unearthed now, and that's what we're moving into. The astrology, all astrologers saw this coming for 2020. We weren't surprised that 2020 was going to be a really hard, difficult year. We've all said this. Any astrologer that knows what they're doing was not being like, I can't wait to jump into 2020, because we saw the astrology. We knew how intense it was, and we saw the same cycles that we had previous through other plagues, through other, World War I, World War II. You see themes and cycles. That's what astrology shows you. You can see the cyclical pattern repeating itself. So we knew this was coming, but this has to come to a head, because the old systems and the old structures need to die, and then we need to build new ones. And so what happens is things get really bad before. So again, that's why I gave that disclaimer. And in no way am I, I feel horrible for anyone that has died, but this stuff needs to come up because the corruption, the deceit, the lies was always here. It's just now being exposed. And we have many years going through this of exposing this. So this is where we're at right now. We have to really find peace and solace in these times because we're going to be in this for a while. But anyone that's here, you signed up for this. We need your energy. You're part of this change. And I'm not one of those people that's saying we're just going to a new earth and it's going to be all unicorns and rainbows and like Atlantis. No, I don't think that's true. But what I am saying is we are going to a new earth because we're creating it because this no longer works for us. Society the way it was, these programs and these patterns and these beliefs, it was fake. It's no longer working for us.
Wow, I love that. That's a great point. It's true. And it's like, and I feel like it hasn't been working for a lot of us in society, even though on the surface we may have thought it was.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I mean, one example that comes to mind, and I know that this, our society hasn't really isn't dealing with this at the moment, but like when I look at like a lot of these, the loans, that we get, and we get that material good that we've so coveted, and we're happy about it, right? So we're happy, but in the meantime we've got this loan with crazy interest that we're just paying and paying, and it's sucking our energy, and so we think we're happy, but it's like we haven't really experienced what life could be like if we're able to channel and own all of our energy, as much of it, a lot more than we're able to own now, and not let it seep out into places in parasitic ways like you were talking about, like the way that you were talking about parasites. I feel like, I mean, you've experienced firsthand how when your energy is being taken, what that experience is like, and then when you own it, I just feel so much more, I mean, strength in your energy and in your tone and your vibe, and just knowing what you were experiencing versus now. I just feel like it's a very profound shift.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it is something that I don't wish upon anyone, but most people are going through it and they don't even actually know. Maybe it wasn't as extreme as my case because my entire body was shutting down. It was just the toxic overload was too high. And there's so much more I can say, but in 2016, I did get vaccines to go to Bali. And then a couple months later, that's when I got sick and that's when my whole body shut down. Because it's mercury, it's aluminum, mercury. Your body cannot handle that. Can't.
Wow. Yeah, that's.
So it was the tipping point. I'm not going to say that was 100% everything. I'm saying that was the tipping point.
No, I totally get it, and I think that's a great point, because we have so much toxic exposure to so many different things in our society, whether it's from like these electromagnetic frequencies, from our cell phone carriers, or whether it's the glyphosate in our food, that that is not organic or not GMO free, whether it's sometimes it could be in toxic dynamics with different people and how we interact, and I think that's a great point, because a lot of people, they want to say that it's black or white, either one thing caused this or not. And so when you look at it in the way that you described, it's like tipping point or toxic overload. It's like we're able to stomach so much, but then when you throw a massive load on top of it, like
it's a storm. It's really the cytokine storm, literally, in my microbiome, in my digestive tract. It was horrible. And speaking of toxins, I haven't shared this. It just hasn't come up, but I think this is important to say. I share openly how I had an eating disorder when I was 21, and I went to a clinic to get help. And one of the doctors there decided then to put me on Adderall. They said I needed it. They did all these tests, and they said that.
What is Adderall? Like, what is it used for?
Like basically speed. It's basically like giving you speed. And they use it for ADHD. ADD and ADHD. So they said, you know, I'm too scattered and it's going to help me focus. And okay, so I was on Adderall by doctor prescription, you know, thinking that that's going to help me get better for many years. I stopped many years ago because I just intuitively, I was like, I don't want to take this anymore. But imagine it's basically speed. Imagine what that's doing to your liver, right? So then again, every day I was taking a pill from the big pharma that I didn't need because I haven't been on it for many, many years, but I just took it for several years based on what doctors told me and trusting them. And that amount of toxicity of what that's doing to your liver, and I'm still cleansing my liver to this day from it because it's literally just going straight to your liver, and your liver can only hold so much.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And these days everyone's prescribed you know, antidepressants. And you know, listen, I was on antidepressants when I was younger, again prescribed that because they, you know, my energy levels were low. Again, I stopped that many years ago. Intuitively I was just enough. And I understand, again, there's a time and a place, okay, so I understand that. But what I am saying is it's overprescribed. It's
Yeah.
way overprescribed. You just, I broke my toe, you want a pill, here's that. You know, that's the society, that's the world we're living in right now, and that's toxicity.
So well
And
put.
then we wonder why everyone's getting cancer, autoimmune. Well, why are you surprised? Like, why are we surprised when we live in a toxic environment? It's mind-boggling to me now that I know this. Nothing surprises me. Of course, there's going to be cancer and autoimmune and all these things when we're living in that environment. So,
Wow. Great point. You know, as you were describing that, I feel like, I mean, you're really highlighting the importance of incorporating these other modalities. You know, when I say like other modalities, other compared to what we're used to of medicine and what we consider to be, you know, healing, like you said, with, you know, popping pills left and right, and recognizing their connection to your energy, your physical symptoms, and your overall health. And so it really marks an important connection for me of how our astrology, our intuition, and these signs and these connections are so important to our overall health, not just spiritual, but also physical.
100%. And it's what I tell everyone. Astrology is amazing, but it's not everything. We have so many tools. It's just another tool, but it's a beautiful tool. You know, when I look at someone's birth chart, that's why I didn't grow up thinking, oh, I'm going to be an astrologer. Oh, I can't wait to do this. No, it's when I discovered astrology, and it was a time in my life when I did not know what was going on. It was the last recession, when everything crashed. I was an interior architect. There were no design jobs. And I had to really look at my life and figure out what I want to do. So I somehow discovered astrology. Someone introduced me to it. And it clicked right away because my soul has done this many, many lifetimes before, right? And it was just Danielle in this incarnation remembering. But then I started looking, okay, well, what are my gifts? What are my
Sorry,
strengths?
I apologize, but your soul had experienced being an astrologer many lifetimes
Oh,
before?
absolutely. I literally just taught myself this in 2 seconds. And this is, astrology is another language. So it's like me all of a sudden being like, I'm going to learn German. And all of a sudden not knowing German and just getting German book. And then like in um, 6 months to a year being fluent. Okay, that's very rare. So that's
Right.
what this is. It's the language
Oh,
of the stars. It's a language of our soul. So I just had to remember. And when I was looking at the birth chart and I was looking at, okay, well, what are my gifts? What are my talents? What are my struggles? And then understanding your birth chart helps you understand why you're here, what your purpose is, why you keep repeating patterns over and over again. It's like, oh, I would say when I first learned, I'm like, how did the chart know I did that? Oh my God, I do that. Right. Once I understood what the archetypes meant, I'm like, it's in my chart. Oh my God, I do that. Well, yeah, obviously, that's why I do that, right? So it's patterns, but it's not, we're not stuck. It's not defining us. But if we don't make the unconscious conscious, right? What's that saying? I think it's by Freud, Jung. I couldn't even tell you right now. If you don't make the unconscious conscious, you call it fate or something. I'm totally butchering this, but there's a
okay.
beautiful quote.
That's the point. You hit
Yeah,
the point ahead. Yeah.
we'll find the quote after. But it's understanding our deeply ingrained behavioral patterns, becoming aware, making more conscious decisions, empowering yourself, and understanding, wow, okay, you know, if someone has a lot of planets in the ninth house, they're probably here for publishing. They're probably here to speak their mind. They're here for truth. They're here for spirituality. So it's so easy for me to look at a chart and be like, okay, well, these are your gifts. So why aren't you? And they're like, oh, I don't know. I'm not doing that right, because that's our mind and our doubts and society and our programming getting in the way. But I'm like, oh, but it's in your chart. This is who you are. Your chart shows who you are beyond your mind and the programming and the belief systems, right? So it's such a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Wow, that's wonderful, because I mean, when you describe it that way, it's like, I mean, I'm very familiar with understanding, you know, some of our patterns of conditioning and like what we've gotten accustomed to in this life through patterns, whether it's from, we just picked up from parents, we picked it up from their ancestors, or from TV, or from school, you know, and from different patterns that we picked up that become part of our personality.
Yeah.
But when you describe it, you know, it tells me that, you know, astrology is able to go beyond those patterns that we've just picked up from here and there, and to look at us from a soul perspective, and the perspective of what our soul is here for, what our mission is.
Absolutely. And I tell people over and over again is, yeah, sure, the economy tanked. And so for a while I was like, you know, didn't know what was going on, but that was during my spiritual awakening. But the economy fixed itself, right? Everything is cyclical. So it was just a temp. I already had other jobs, you know, I was doing
When was
sales.
it? When are you
This
referring?
was the last recession. So what was it, 2008,
8?
9? Yeah,
Gotcha.
around then. And so I always tell people, I'm not doing this just because I had to. And it's like, oh, there was no other job. I would not continue if I saw this was not truthful and not accurate. Why would I waste my time? Why would I put my name on the line for something if it was fluff, right? So I tell people, I'm doing this because it's a calling and it's truthful and it changed my entire life, right? And so I'm not doing this because like, oh, I have nothing else to do. I have a master's degree. I have a master's degree. I mean, these days, I don't think anyone needs schooling. That's a personal opinion. But if we really want to go there, I have a master's degree. So it's not like I just don't know what to do. No, like I'm qualified. I can do a lot of other things. I'm an architect. That's what I was doing. I was working at one of the top architecture firms in the world. You know, and it's Perkins and Will, if anyone wants to look it up. It's literally one of the top architecture firms in the world. And I was miserable there. I hated it. It's not them. It wasn't my calling, you know? So astrology is so beautiful. It's not something that, oh, I just don't know what else to do, so I'm doing it. You know, I'm doing astrology, and astrology is just a jumping off point for everything else that's going on. It's understanding that we're multidimensional beings and we actually, we're quantum, right? So why are we limiting ourselves?
Beautiful. Wow. I could just go on and on, and, you know, chatting with you. This is wonderful. One of the things that, you know, I love about your Instagram page, I am Danielle Paige, is how you share moments of not just your teachings, but also just your, you know, your everyday life and things that you're going through. You know, I find that really beautiful. And can you share a little bit about why you feel that's important, and yeah, and what message you are hoping for people to get from that? Because, you know, personally, when I see that, it's like, you know, Danielle, she's just like, she goes through, you know, a lot of the trials and tribulations, and she and joys and pains that I go through, or some other people go through. So I was just wondering if you could share a little about that.
Yeah, you said a key word, and I just lost the word, but it said something about like why. You said something along the lines of why do you feel like that's important, or why do you have to share? But here's the thing that I want to say is I'm just me, which is raw, pure. Some days I'm crying, some days I'm happy. There's no agenda. There's no like me showing this because I think it's going to help people connect to me more, or me showing this because I want to show the world how human I am. I'm literally just showing up. And, you know, I found out my dad was diagnosed with cancer. I came on Instagram Live. I had a really hard day with him and he wasn't listening to me, and I know I could help him. And I was crying hysterically and I was in so much pain and I was so hurt, and I just wanted to talk to people. And I'm like, I'm going through this too, but there's no agenda. There's no like, oh, I'm going to show people how human I am. I'm truthful. And it's actually very either it's very polarizing for people. People love that about me because they know there's no bullshit. I'm just coming on, I'm sharing, I'm going to say it like it is. Or people have a hard time because so many people have so many masks on. And now I'm not sitting here saying I'm perfect, but I show up. Like if I did something stupid, I'm going to tell you. If I did something great, I'm going to tell you. I'm just being me. I'm human. I don't think I'm a guru. I don't think I'm this. I know my soul is very wise. My soul has ancient wisdom from the beginning of time. I know this. This is one of the last incarnations for my life. But Danielle is just trying to get through this, as well. Danielle's like, oh my God, I just ate too much. I can't even fit into my pants now, right? Like Danielle's a human being. Danielle is just as normal. So I mix the two, and it's just me. I'm just truthful. So a lot of people are shocked by what I share, but it's like when you are in alignment with your truth and God, source, divine, whatever you want to call it, I don't care what anyone else says. There are people that don't like me. There are people that love me. There are people that think I'm a quack. There are people that I've changed their life, and that's great. But ultimately, none of that matters. I mean, obviously, I want to help change people's lives, but ultimately, someone's opinion doesn't matter because I know that I'm living my life from truth. I am in alignment with my soul. I'm here to live my purpose. And if someone doesn't like it, that's okay. That's not really my problem. You don't have to. And there's no shade. You don't have to. It is what it is. Maybe you're not there. Maybe it's not aligned with you. It's all good. But none of that matters because I know who I am. I'm in complete alignment. For me, almost 13 years ago now, to leave everything I was doing to all of a sudden be like, I'm going to be an astrologer and a spiritual teacher. When a time, in 2009, 10, when people were like, obviously astrology has been around forever, but it wasn't this whole like alternative spiritual movement, I feel like came really big the last several years. So people were like, are you crazy? And I'm like, no, this is what I'm going to do. And I wasn't making money for years. I had client here and there, but I stuck with it because I knew in my heart that this was my path. And now I'm more successful than I ever even imagined. And I know that I haven't even started the peak of my career. That's the beauty of this. And I'm not saying that for to boast about it. I'm saying it to show people is that it doesn't matter what anyone else says. It's all in alignment with your soul.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
Wonderful. Great. Well, I think we're coming to our time, but I really, really thank you for being here and spending this hour, with me and with our audience. And I was wondering, in relation to, everything that's going on, in the world. I mean, we've got, with the with the lockdowns and with, the election and with a lot of the corruption that's getting exposed to the path of the inner that's being exposed. Like you said, more and more people are getting attuned or have this affinity with spirituality and astrology. Is there anything that you want to leave our audience with as your final words of inspiration that we can all leave with?
Yeah, I mean, I think this time is really showing us that we can't always control the outside circumstances. We can speak up for what we find truthful, and that's very important, but we can't always control what else is going on. And the most important thing right now is you need to be able to find peace, and you need to find grounding, and you need to find happiness in your heart, because we're going to be going through some crazy stuff for a while. So again, it's coming back to, you can have all the distraction around you, but can you be happy? Can you be at peace? Can you come back to your heart? And how can you be in your power no matter what anyone else is telling you what to do? So that is ultimately what we're walking into and what we're moving to. So I will leave people with that question of, how can you find peace in your heart? How can you find happiness? What are your values? What's important to you? What matters more so than you ever realized? You need to find that now.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Danielle.
Thank you.
Where can people learn more about your work?
Absolutely. You can follow me on Instagram at I am Danielle Paige, and that's Paige. Or you can go to my website at daniellepage.com. And yeah, on Instagram, I have all my links. I also have my podcast, Cosmic Body Podcast, on iTunes. And yeah, lots of stuff going on all the time.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Danielle. It's truly been a
You.
pleasure and honor. Really appreciate it.
Same, likewise. Thank you for having me on.